excited about Thursday nights. Two of my favorite times of the week are Sunday mornings, about 9:30, and Thursday nights, about 8 o'clock. Because I get to worship Jesus with you guys and with these guys, this band that leads us in worship. And I do my best to seek the Lord throughout the week and to really bring some substance on Thursday nights. That's my goal. I don't want to serve up Cool Whip. I don't want to serve up something light. I really want to put some meat on the table, and that's my objective, is to open the book every week. Because every time we open the Bible, there's the opportunity for the supernatural to happen. This is the only book on the planet with a pulse. It's the living Word of God. So I've told you before, a big part of my job is not thinking up something to say, but unleashing what God has already said in the Bible. And so it takes on a life of itself. And so when I unleash the Word, when I open the Bible, it begins to move around the room, and God will use it to say something to you that maybe I never said. And so open up your hearts and your minds. And I dare you to keep coming on Thursday nights, because I believe if you hang around the edges of Jesus, that you're going to see that it's real and that it's true, and that He is going to reveal Himself to you. We have 10 weeks every Thursday night. It's been kind of choppy the last few weeks. We were here, and then we were on campus, and then we had the football game, and then we're here again. For the next 10 weeks straight, man, we're going to be here 8 o'clock every Thursday night, and I'm praying for God to do some big things. I pray some pretty ginormous prayers because He is an amazingly ginormous God. Incredibly huge God. And so I'm praying for miracles to happen. I'm praying for God to show up and to change lives and to save souls on Thursday nights. And maybe tonight, it'll start with your life and with your heart. So if you have a Bible, let's open the Bible together to the table of contents. And we're going to find the book of the Bible that we're going to look at tonight. And it's the Gospel of John. So if you look in there, my Bible is page 1068. It'll be different in yours. Or you can pull it up on your iPad or your iPhone. I prefer the old school. So if you have a Bible, I just really invite you to bring it on Thursday nights, right? To open up an actual book and to start navigating your way through the Bible and learning your way through the Bible where things are at. So in John chapter 8 is where we're going to be tonight. We're answering the ultimate question. The ultimate question in life is not who am I going to marry, even though that's pretty important. The ultimate question in life is not what am I going to do with my career, even though that's pretty important. The ultimate question in life is not what am I going to have to eat after Paradigm, Cane's, or Taco Bell. That's not the ultimate question in life, even though that's pretty important. The ultimate question is, who is Jesus Christ? Who is Jesus Christ? And we said 3 weeks ago at Urbanofsky Park, there's lots of answers to this question. Your philosophy professor will have an answer. Your biology professor will have an answer. Your friends, your sorority sisters, your fraternity brothers will have an answer to this question. Your grandpa, your aunt, your priest or pastor back home has an answer to this question. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what they think. At the end of the day, when all is said and done, what do you think? And how would you answer this question? Who is Jesus Christ? And I thought, you know what? Let's go straight to the source. Let's go straight to the source and let Jesus answer this question for Himself. So last week, we asked the question, who is Jesus Christ? And Jesus Himself answered, I am the bread of life. And now we come to John chapter 8. So He said that in John chapter 6, and then John chapter 7, there's all kind of division around Jesus, lots of controversy around Jesus, and some things never change. Everywhere He went, there was controversy. Everywhere He went, He created division. People say, well, can't we all just get along? Actually, no, because Jesus creates division. He created division then, and He still creates controversy and division. So in John chapter 7, we find Jesus at the Feast of Booths, or the Feast of Tabernacles. And I think it's interesting that the actual feast started at sundown yesterday. So at the very week that we're coming to this passage, when Jesus is hanging out around the Feast of Tabernacles, practicing Jews are actually doing the Feast of Tabernacles. tonight. If you were in Israel or around some Orthodox Jewish community, they'd have these tabernacles, these 3-walled tabernacles set up to commemorate God's deliverance from Egypt and slavery and his provision in the wilderness. And so what was going on here when Jesus walked into this Feast of Tabernacles, when he walked into this Feast of Booths? This was the greatest annual celebration for the Jewish people. It's also called the Days of Rejoicing or the Seasons of Joy. And a lot gets lost in translation here, not just from Greek to English, but also the context in which the words were spoken. So if you were to go watch a movie and all you heard was the audio, it'd be a little hard, wouldn't it? To put 2 and 2 together. Who's talking? What's going on? You hear gunshots ringing out. Notice that was the kill shot. You hear bombs going off, people screaming. What's going on? And so your imagination is trying to create the picture for the words that you're hearing. And that's oftentimes the case for the Bible. Is that this ancient culture, this Middle Eastern culture that is often foreign to our 21st century North American minds, we're hearing the audio, but we can't see the video. And I think that's especially true for our passage tonight. Let me give you an example here. In John chapter 8, verse 12, this is our prime verse for tonight. Who is Jesus Christ? And here's his answer to us, to that question. Again, Jesus spoke to them saying, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Say light and say life. Those two go together. Light and life. Jesus saying, if you follow me, he's saying, I am the light of the world, which is an absurd statement for a Jewish peasant to make from a global dot on the map. So he's standing up 2,000 years ago in the middle of this dot on the global map, this Jewish peasant, and he's saying, I am the, not the light of the world. How can he say that? Again, this goes back to 3 weeks ago at Urbanovsky. A good teacher, a moral example, he doesn't stand up and stand on a bucket and shout out stuff like that. Either he is the Son of God or he's a little crazy. And so we have to wrestle with who Jesus actually is, not how we've modified him, not our customized Christ that fits in with our lifestyle or our belief system. This is who Jesus was. This is who he is. I am the light of the world. An incredible statement by Jesus. And so our modern minds miss the context of not what he's saying, but where he's saying it. And the backdrop, the context of this statement makes it more vivid and graphic and powerful. So reading this without the context, again, is like watching or listening to the audio and not being able to see the video. So here's what's happening. There's the temple, right? And during this great feast, it was the greatest celebration in the Jewish year. It was the last feast in their annual cycle of festivals. So they're all coming to town. Lots of people. It's celebration. It's kind of like a Christmas, Easter type atmosphere. And at the first night of the feast, it was called the illumination of the temple. And so in one of the outer courts, they had these 4 huge candelabras. These things were like Mac Daddy candelabras, massive. I'm not talking about this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. I'm talking Texas-sized candelabras here. And so what they would do is they would have this lighting ceremony called the illumination of the temple. And every night they would repeat this, but the first night was significant and the last night was especially significant. And what would happen, and Jesus, this is the backdrop again, this is the video that goes with the audio. They would light these 4 huge lamps, these candelabras in the outer court. And there'd be an exuberant celebration that took place under the light. And they danced through the night, holding burning torches in their hands and singing songs of praise. This is the backdrop to what Jesus says. This is the video to the audio that we just heard. And so they're lighting these candles, and Jesus stands up with this backdrop, with the massive candelabras and the exuberant celebration. And you have the people that are holding torches and they're dancing and they're singing praises to God. And this is especially I think that, it's especially graphic, it's vivid or powerful because this is before electricity. So it was dark. I mean, it was dark. Have you ever been somewhere before where it was like totally dark? And so there was no street lights, there was no porch lights, there was no motion lights. It was dark. And so the temple, from anywhere in the city, the temple was glowing. You could see the glow from the temple from anywhere in the city. And Jesus stands up with this going on in the background, and he says, I am the light of the world. Whoever believes in me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. And when he says never, in the original, that's a double negative, which makes it very emphatic. So you take the never and you put all caps on never. It's not just negative, it's the double negative in the original, which means never, no, not ever will you walk in darkness. That's powerful, man. In a world that we're surrounded with darkness, there's darkness outside. There's war and murder and corruption and disease and abuse and neglect. Craziness happens. There's darkness all around us, and there's darkness within us. There's pride and there's lust and there's hatred and there's greed. And Jesus says, wait, there's hope. There's hope in him. So the glow from the temple, and Jesus stands up and shouts out this phrase about him being the light of the world. So the theme in the Gospel of John is light. Any visual learners? I'm a visual dude. I like seeing truth, not just hearing truth. And light is a powerful image. So you have throughout the whole Bible even, in the very beginning, there was darkness, and God said what? Let there be light. And there was light. So God spoke, light happened, darkness defeated. The light is an image throughout the Bible, but especially in the Gospel of John. In chapter 1, verse 4, in Jesus was life, and this life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. That's the power of light. Here it is, guys. Light always wins. It always wins. I mean, have you ever flipped on a light bulb in your dorm or in your apartment or back home, and it's struggling to push back the darkness? It never happens. I don't care how dark it is. I remember I worked at Kanakuk one summer, and we went spelunking. That's a fun word, isn't it? Go ahead and say it. Spelunking. You know what spelunking is? It's not scuba line. Some of you guys were here a few weeks ago. I shared my favorite Greek word. Spelunking is cave diving, right? And we went down into this cave, man, and the counselor, I was an assistant counselor, and the guy that was guiding us through the caves, he said, now hand me your flashlights. And like a bunch of idiots, we gave this dude, and I started thinking, this is like some movie. They're going to make a movie about this someday. I'm handing this guy, I don't even know, my flashlight like 100 feet below the earth. He could be some psycho for all I know. And then he gathers all the flashlights. We didn't have cell phones, no lighters, no anything. And he turns them off. And it was pitch black. And there was no Riddick there to like see in the dark. It was pitch black, man. And everybody started freaking out a little bit, even though we knew homeboy was right there. He was right there. And I was like, you start breathing a little, your pulse goes up. And all of us, we were like 2 seconds from pandemonium. Like knocking over old ladies, kicking little kids, every man for himself. Just freaking out, man, just blowing a fuse. Why? Because of the darkness. But then we turned the flashlight back on, and it defeated the darkness, but it also pushed back our fear. So light is a theme in the Gospel of John. It's also a theme throughout the Scriptures, and it seems to be this universal theme of light and darkness, where light is generally good and darkness is generally bad. In the Star Wars movies, there's something called the Force. You guys know this? You could quote the movies probably. The Force is a mystical energy that permeates the galaxy. Its dark side represents an aspect of it that is not practiced by the Jedi. Obi-Wan Kenobi, which I've always wanted to use that phrase in a sermon, so there it is. Obi-Wan Kenobi, twice, tells Luke that Vader was seduced by the dark side. So there's this universal theme, and even Darth Vader was constantly trying to recruit Skywalker to what? Come over to the dark side. So you have light and you have darkness, and the darkness always have these bad guys, like these evil creatures, like vampires come out at night. In all the movies, like the sun's coming up, right? And they like combust when the sunlight hits them. It's like bad things happen at night. Bad things happen in the dark. There's another movie where the sun never shines in Mordor. It's also called the Black Land, or the Land of the Shadow. But it always seems to be bright in Rivendell. Dark and evil creatures come from Mordor, and good and honorable creatures come from Rivendell. The effects of darkness over time. Here's what I want to challenge you with. Because you go into the shadows, you go into the swamps, you go into the darkness, and you find, how do I put this? Stankiness. Is that a word? You know what do you understand what that means? You find rot in the dark corners. And it's the effect of darkness over time. And so what the enemy will do is, like Vader, he'll seduce us to the dark side. And he'll make it sound nice, and he'll make it sound good, but once we get there, it's not immediate. It's not an immediate effect. It's like this. It's like there's this character named Smeagol. You guys remember Smeagol? And Smeagol, when we first meet him, he's in the daylight, but he kind of gets seduced to the dark side, and he grabs the ring, and over the years, Smeagol becomes who? Gollum. And he goes into this cave, and he's in the darkness, and it's like gross things in the dark, bad things in the dark. Many people are scared of the dark. The light brings hope. The light brings hope. The darkness breeds fear. I'm going to share something with you. When I grew up in a house with 5 kids, my mom and my dad, and 1 bathroom. And so my dad's office was right up the hill. And with 3 sisters and a brother, we got real personal. So somebody was on the shower, somebody was doing something else, somebody was brushing their teeth. But there'd be times when the door was locked, and I'd go up to my dad's office, which is about 100 yards, and at night, right? And I remember as this football playing dude back in the day, right? I thought I was bulletproof. I remember walking back that 100 yards in the night, right? And darkness breeds fear. Light brings hope. And I remember walking through the pine trees in between my dad's office and my house, and there's the porch light, right? And I don't know, man, I was this tough guy, like this bulletproof 18-year-old with a lot of tomahawks on my football helmet. And I remember, I can't believe I'm going to tell you guys this. I remember taking off running. I thought like hoot owls were coming after me, like these possessed bats, or every little sound, the wind in the trees, a pine cone would fall, and like a little girl. And I'd get to the porch, I'd run towards the light, and I'd get to the porch, and I would, serenity now. I would collect myself so that no one would see how scared I got. And I'd walk in, what's up? Like nothing ever happened. But the light brings hope, the darkness breeds fear. Are you scared of the dark? Because there's something about darkness that makes us fearful, suspicious of what might be hiding in the shadows. In the movies, the demons always seem to come out at night, right? It's like, don't do it, man. In the movies, I want to stand up in the theater and say, bro, just wait till the sun comes out. Why you got to go to 7-Eleven at midnight. You know what's about to happen. He's about to get shanked in the back by a werewolf or something. He's about to get chomped on by some creature. And the music in the background, but it's the darkness that breeds fear, while the light brings hope. We're suspicious of what's hiding in the shadows, the dark alleys and the dark forests that contain the nocturnal predators. And I think all of this on a surface level communicates a spiritual truth, though. What Jesus is saying here is, I am the light of the world. He says, if you believe in me, if you follow me, if you accept me, you will never, no, not ever, walk in darkness, but you will have the light that brings life. Now, how can he say this? How can he say this? Because it's been 2,000 years almost. It's because it's not an external light. It's not coming to the church to protect yourself from the vampires, the holy ground, or whatever it might be. It's that when we follow Jesus, when we embrace Jesus, the light comes into our life. It's like in Acts chapter 2 in the day of Pentecost. It's pieces of fire, pieces of light that come into them. And now they carry the light with them wherever they go if you're a follower of Christ. You rarely meet somebody that's afraid of the light. You ever met somebody before? A little kid? Hey, do you want me to turn all the lights off in the house? Are you cool? You cool with the light? No one's ever afraid of the light. It's always afraid of the dark. My kids, I tuck them in every night, except for Thursdays. And they always want me to leave the light on because there might be monsters in the closet. So we turn the lights on, we leave the lights on. And there's things that you buy called night lights that bring comfort to kids. And that communicates something to us, though. The light keeps the monsters away. It keeps the wolves at bay. Light brings hope. Light defeats fear. And Jesus said, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. And the light always wins. So I don't care what kind of darkness you're in tonight. Some of you have some secrets in your life, and you're in this crazy dark spot, this crazy dark moment, and you feel like you're sinking in the quicksand, and there's no hope for you. I'm telling you, there is. The light always wins. But the enemy will try to get you to hide in the shadows, because here's something else about the light. The light also reveals. It reveals. And so some of the reasons that you hide in the shadows is because you're ashamed of what you're doing. And so you stay in the shadows. And the long-term effect of the darkness, it turns you into somebody that you never thought you'd ever be. It turns you into something that you never wanted to be. But if you come into the light, it reveals our brokenness, but it also fixes our brokenness. It cleanses our brokenness. The light defeats darkness. It defeats fear. The light brings life, and it brings hope. In Genesis chapter 1, verse 3, God said, let there be light. God spoke, and light happened. God spoke, and the darkness was defeated. And get this, in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, Paul's talking about the New Testament church and Christians, and he says, for God, who said, let light shine out of darkness, with a reference to Genesis, made his light to shine in our hearts to give us the light of the knowledge of God's glory displayed in the face of Jesus Christ. God still speaks, light still happens, darkness and fear are still defeated. And so stop hiding in the shadows. Stop running from the light. That's the place where you're going to find wholeness. That's the place you're going to find salvation, the only place. Not a light. Jesus is the light that brings real life, true life, eternal life. Listen, I don't have to convince you guys of the darkness in the world. Some of you, unfortunately, have been recipients of this. You know, when little kids get hurt, the crazy darkness in the world, man, you just turn on the news and you watch 5 or 6 minutes of the news and you see kind of the stuff that's going on and you're thinking, man, you know, people picking up guns and just shooting random strangers. People walking into elementary school and just shooting little kids. There's darkness, man. There's crazy darkness. There's sex trafficking going on. There's people kidnapping 6-year-old girls, and they're selling their bodies to other people. There's crazy. I mean, there is so much brokenness and darkness in the world. Sometimes we're tempted to just retreat. Sometimes we're tempted just to not try. With the war, with the corruption and the abuse and the murder and the sickness and the death. But what causes all of this is the darkness that's in here. You know what really, the root of all of that stuff I just described? It's in here. And that's where I want to really zero in tonight. It's not the darkness that's out there. You know, the bad people in your life that's done these bad things, the bad people in the world that are doing these evil things. But I want you to do some soul searching tonight, because there's darkness within. And that's what scares me. It scares me what I'm capable of as a broken human being, as somebody that was born with this sinful nature, with this leaning towards things that aren't healthy or aren't good. There's hate, there's envy, there's lust, there's pride, and the list goes on and on. So we see the darkness without, and we see the darkness within, and we're tempted to despair. But here's the hope. Here's the hope of the gospel. Is that you don't have to find your way into the light. You don't have to climb the mountain, into the cloud that is illuminated. You don't have to travel to some distant land to find the light. You don't have to go to the temple in the Holy Land. Jesus said, I am the light of the world. That means that light is available not just for a select few, but for you. And that means it's not only found in certain parts of the globe, but it's here tonight. This light that brings life, real life, eternal life. There's a light shining in the darkness. Isaiah chapter 9, verse 2, the people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of the deepest darkness, a light has dawned. Jesus fulfills that prophecy. In Matthew chapter 4, they quoted, this is Jesus, the light shining in the darkness. On those living in the land of the shadow of death, and those living in the land of the deepest darkness, there's a light shining. And the light brings hope into the darkest circumstance. Some of you tonight, listen, or you might know somebody. Some of you tonight are maybe considering hurting yourself because you've been hurt and you don't know how to deal with it and you feel completely isolated and alone. And I'm telling you, there's hope. There's hope for you. And it's found in Jesus Christ. It's found in the only one. There's counselors that can help you with your issues, but no counselor, no rabbi, no priest, no preacher, no pastor can ultimately fix what's really broken. I can't reach below the surface of your life and touch your soul. That darkness at the core, that wick in our soul that is unlit. And so we can fix everything on the outside. Some of you tonight are considering hurting yourself, and I'm telling you, there is hope for you in Jesus Christ. And you never go too far, y'all. You never go too far. You never outrun the light of God. You never outsin the grace of God. He's the light of the world, and he's shining into the darkness, even here tonight. In 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9, God is calling us out of darkness into his wonderful light. And so the challenge tonight is this, to step into the light. To step into the light. See, he's calling us out of darkness into his wonderful light. And the same God, listen, the God, the perfect creator of the universe, the same God that in the very beginning spoke light into existence. He looked at nothing and he said, let there be light. And light happened and darkness was defeated. That same God now speaks those same words over the darkness in your heart. where he looks at you and he says, let there be light. And light happens, and darkness is defeated, and hope comes to life, a living hope through Jesus Christ. So the challenge is this: step into the light. Stop hiding in the shadows. Stop listening to the voice of the enemy who wants to isolate you, to destroy you. He wants to seduce you to the dark side. He makes these false promises, and he builds these mirages that we run after. And we end up in the darkness. Oh, I know. I know. Because I've been there. And I found myself laying in a ditch. Hopeless. And then the light shined in the darkness. 18 years ago for me. I know it's real. Because 18 years ago, I stepped into the light. And the light that doesn't just shine on my body, on my skin, but a light that shines below the surface, the light of life. So here's the invitation, is let the light in. Step into the light. Step out of the shadows. Step out of the darkness. Don't spend another minute in the cave. Hope is available. Forgiveness is available. Let the light in. Let the light in below the surface. Let it shine into every dark corner of your life. Let it shine into the basement of your life. And let God speak those words over your heart. Let there be light. Light brings life. Light brings hope. And light defeats fear. And so that's the invitation tonight, is to come down front or right where you're at, and maybe for the first time, step into the light. Maybe for the first time, step out of the shadows. There's a voice that's going to fight you. He's going to say you're not worthy, you're dirty, you're going to step into the light, you're going to be rejected. That's a lie. That's a lie that will keep you in the cave, that will keep you in the shadows, that will keep you shackled to fear for the rest of your life. And I'm telling you, Jesus said, I am the light of the world. The light shines. It shines in the darkness. On those living in the land of brokenness, on those living in a land of abuse, on those living in a land of neglect and war and poverty and corruption, on those living in a land of deep darkness, a light has dawned, and his name is Jesus. Lord, we give you this time. I pray, God, that you would give us the courage to step into the light. Lord, your word says you're calling us. You're calling us out of darkness into your marvelous light. And so you're speaking names tonight. You're tugging on hearts tonight. And I pray you that they'd have the faith and the courage to reject the lie of the enemy that wants to keep them locked up in the basement of fear. He wants to keep them in the prison of darkness. And I pray they would step into the light. And that you would illuminate them